Welcome to Le Weekend, the bonus extended podcast episode for France News Brief. In case you missed one of our dailies, we've put together a convenient way to catch up on the stories from the past week in France, plus additional content about something related to culture, art, history, or current events at the end. If you enjoyed our daily updates, you'll find everything you need right here in a seamless recap of the week's most important headlines. Perfect for those who want to catch up in just one episode, Le Weekend is designed to keep you informed and engaged with a lighter touch at the end. Let's dive in. This is the news for Monday, December 8th. Finance Minister Ronan Lescure said the French economy is likely to grow at least 0.8% in 2025. Unless there is a sharp reversal in the final 3 months of the year, growth will outpace the 0.7% that the government had earlier anticipated, as reported by Reuters. President Emmanuel Macron said he has threatened China with tariffs if Beijing fails to take steps to reduce its massive trade surplus with the European Union. The president, returning from an official trip to China, believes that the country must take measures to reduce its trade surplus, as reported by Le Monde. Architect Frank Gehry has died. An icon of architecture known worldwide for his large, curved and complex forms such as the Guggenheim Bilbao and Fondation Vuitton Paris, was 96 years of age, as reported by Les Echos. The Louvre Museum said that hundreds of books in the Egyptian department were damaged by a water leak. The leak damaged between 300 and 400 works, though administrators said there were no irreplaceable and definitive losses, as reported by La Tribune de l'Art. In related news, the Louvre unions called a strike over work conditions and the need for building repairs. Grievances are mounting against the Art Museum's director Laurence Descartes, as staff accuses her of ignoring building priorities. The strike is planned for December 15th, as reported by Le Monde. Miss Tahiti Inuapoko Devez was crowned Miss France 2026 on Saturday during a ceremony at the Zénith in Amiens, broadcast on live TV. She succeeds Angélique Ingarni-Philippon from Martinique, as reported by France 24. France is set to return a stolen dinosaur skeleton to Mongolia. The fossils were looted in the Gobi Desert and were confiscated by French customs officials during a 2015 seizure. The specimen dates back approximately 70 million years, as reported by Le Monde. This is the news for Tuesday, December 9th. Suspected drones were seen over a French military intelligence base. The French Air and Space Force said that the sighting occurred over 3 separate nights last month in the latest possible incursions over sensitive sites in the country, as reported by Reuters. Auto groups Renault and Ford announced they have formed a partnership to develop 2 Ford-branded electric cars on a Renault platform in northern France. The heads of the 2 manufacturers said the alliance is in no way a preliminary step for a merger, as reported by BFM. French power supply is outpacing demand as electrification lags. Grid operator RTE said that a period of electricity overcapacity is due to flagging industrial use and growing renewable and nuclear output, calling for Europe-level action to boost electrification, as reported by Reuters. As France marked the 120th anniversary of the 1905 law separating church and state, a coalition of non-profit organizations warned that the principle of laïcité, the French concept of secularism, is being transformed into a system of citizen surveillance, as reported by Le Monde. Line 15, south of the Greater Paris Supermetro, will finally not open before 2027. The developer Société des Grands Projets said the initial target of the end of 2026 is no longer achievable, and also confirmed the delay in the commissioning of lines 16 and 17, as reported by Le Figaro. This is the news for Wednesday, December 10th. The French Social Security budget bill has passed the first step. The Assemblée, or lower house, backed the measure, which includes the suspension of an unpopular pension reform, by 247 votes to 234. It will now head back to the Senate before returning to the lower chamber, as reported by Le Monde. Chinese group Huawei is considering the future of a recently completed plant in eastern France, according to sources, amid the slow rollout of 5G in Europe and a hardening stance by some governments on using Chinese equipment, as reported by Reuters. The French state has authorized mining exploration projects in western France. Braze Resources has obtained authorization to prospect for rare and precious metals over 850 square kilometers, approximately 328 square miles, in 4 French departments, as reported by Le Figaro. Habitat loss is driving France's biodiversity collapse, but recovery is still possible, according to the World Wildlife Fund's annual report. The few species that receive real protection show that long-term, well-funded action can reverse the trend, as reported by Le Monde. This is the news for Thursday, December 11th. Germany, France, and Spain will try this week to break a deadlock over Europe's next-generation fighter jet program, a project worth up to 100 billion euros, approximately 117 billion US dollars, which is seen as vital for the region's defense ambitions, as reported by Reuters. Gendarme police launched an operation to remove several hundred farmers occupying the area around a farm in the Ariège region. At this farm, 200 head of cattle are to be slaughtered after a case of lumpy skin disease, LSD, was discovered earlier this week, as reported by France 24. France's central bank is being sued over alleged complicity in the Rwanda genocide. A complaint has been filed against the Banque de France for having authorized wire transfers that allegedly facilitated the arming of Hutu forces during the 1994 Rwanda genocide, as reported by RFI. A simulation of a nuclear air raid culminating in a mock detonation of the weapon took place with around 40 aircraft flying over several French regions on the night of Tuesday to Wednesday. The Ministry of the Armed Forces, which communicates very little about this exercise, said it also served as a way to demonstrate the high level of expertise of the airborne nuclear component to allies, but also to competitors, as reported by 20 Minutes. This is the news for Friday, December 12th. Google faces a multi-million asset freeze in France after a Russian ruling. The administrator of Google's defunct Russian business has obtained a temporary freeze on some 110 million euros, approximately 129 million US dollars, of the Alphabet-owned company's assets in France, according to official documents seen by Reuters. France updated its 2050 carbon neutrality roadmap. To mark the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, France released a revamped climate plan promising to phase out oil and gas and sharply increase electricity use, as reported by Le Monde. Members of Parliament adopted the automatic renewal of long-term residence permits. The lower house approved a socialist proposal aimed at reducing unnecessary administrative workload. The bill must now be examined by the Senate, as reported by France 24. French video game Clair Obscur swept the LA Game Awards with record 9 wins. The French video game Expedition 33 swept the annual Game Awards in Los Angeles, dominating the ceremony with a record-breaking 9 wins, including Best Video Game of the Year, as reported by RFI. A Christmas commercial created by French animation studio Elogic Studios for the Intermarché supermarket chain has racked up tens of millions of views on social media, at a time when corporations are being criticized for their use of artificial intelligence. The viral advert was made entirely by humans, as reported by Le Monde. Nearly 4 out of 10 French people buy their Christmas gifts on credit, according to a study by a consumer behavior observatory. Another survey revealed that nearly 6 out of 10 French people have already worried that a gift might seem not expensive enough, as reported by Le Figaro. You are listening to Le Weekend. And now that you're all caught up with the main headlines from the past week, it's time for our bonus story. Today we're looking at why the principle of laïcité made the news this week. Laïcité, the French concept of secularism, is simultaneously celebrated and contested across the country. This past Monday, December 9th, France marked its annual National Day of Secularism, commemorating the 120th anniversary of the landmark 1905 law that separated church and state. President Macron and other government officials made public statements and took to social media to reaffirm a commitment to defending secularism, particularly in schools, while the Interior Ministry awarded its annual Secularism Prize to 11 different initiatives promoting understanding of its foundational principle. According to the ministry's data, while 77% of French citizens say they are attached to the principle of laïcité, 71% also believe it is poorly understood and surrounded by misconception. These differences aren't academic. They are playing out in classrooms, courtrooms, and communities every single day. The commemorations come at a time when laïcité itself is under intense scrutiny. Teachers report that an increasing number of students see state secularism as a hindrance to personal freedoms rather than a protection of them. In October alone, there were 527 reported breaches of laïcité in schools. So what exactly is laïcité? How did it become law, and why has it become one of the most debated concepts in contemporary France? Laïcité is not quite the same as the English word secularism, although that's how it's usually translated. The American model of secularism aims to protect religions from the state, while the French concept of laïcité aims to protect the state from religions. According to political scientist Philippe Portier, laïcité is characterized by two major principles: the independence of individual subjects and the neutrality of the state. The first means freedom of conscience, the right to construct your existence independent of religious doctrine. The second means the state must remain completely separate from any religious interpretation of the world. The word laïcité comes from the Greek laos, which designated the people as distinct from priests. For centuries, it simply meant someone who wasn't clergy. But in 1871, the word laïcité appeared in French discourse, and by 1878, educational philosopher Ferdinand Buisson had given it its modern meaning. It what is considered the Bible of the secular school movement. There is another layer of nuance. France's approach divides life into public and private spheres in a very particular way. The laïcité model encourages integration into public order where differences are neutralized, placing religion firmly within the private sphere, creating what proponents call a neutral public space where all citizens can participate equally regardless of their beliefs. Prior to the French Revolution, going back all the way to King Clovis in the 500 AD, Catholicism had been the state religion of France. The Catholic Church wasn't just powerful, it was intertwined with every aspect of life, from education to social services to the legitimacy of the monarchy itself. The revolution disrupted this. The government nationalized church lands in 1789 and created the civil constitution of the clergy in 1790, which required all clergy to swear allegiance to the new constitutional order. This caused massive conflict. Eventually, in 1795, the revolutionary government separated church and state entirely, proclaiming freedom for all religions, but ending state financial support. That didn't last. Napoleon Bonaparte saw pragmatic reasons to restore church-state relations, leading to the Concordat in 1801, a treaty with the Vatican that would govern the relationship for a century. The Concordat recognized Catholicism as the religion of the majority of French people and gave Napoleon the power to nominate bishops and restored state salaries for the clergy. It was a compromise. Throughout the 19th century, two groups kept pushing for full separation: Republicans and Protestants. The tension came to a head at the turn of the 20th century during the Dreyfus Affair, when the Catholic Church's role in anti-Semitic campaigns against a Jewish military officer revealed the dangers of religious influence in public affairs. In 1903, a commission drafted a separation law, presided by former Protestant pastor Ferdinand Buisson and Aristide Briand as the main writer. It led to heated and lengthy debates, 48 sessions in the lower house and 21 more in the Senate, until December 1905, where it was finally passed. Article 1 guaranteed freedom of conscience and worship, while Article 2 declared that the Republic neither recognizes, nor employs, nor subsidizes any religion. Churches built before 1905 became public property, maintained by local governments, but available for religious use free of charge. The Pope at the time, Pius X, condemned the law, which led to a lengthy, fierce opposition and 10 years of implementation, with controversial inventories of church property, sometimes meeting violent resistance. Gradually, an accommodation emerged, and by the time the constitution was written declaring France a secular republic after the Second World War in 1946, the principle had achieved broad acceptance. So why is laïcité still so controversial now? For most of the 20th century, it wasn't considered a significant issue because France was relatively homogeneous religiously. But decolonization in North Africa during the 50s and 60s brought substantial migration from predominantly Muslim countries. Today, France is home to approximately 5.7 million Muslims, representing Europe's largest Islamic community. The modern controversy began in 1989 with what became known as the headscarf affair, when several Muslim girls were expelled from a public middle school for wearing headscarves. Then in 2004, France enacted a law prohibiting obvious religious symbols in public schools, affecting not just Muslim headscarves, but also large Catholic crosses and Jewish kippas. In 2010, face-covering veils were banned in all public spaces, and more recently, in 2023, the government banned the traditional Islamic robe from state schools. Since 2013, France's highest administrative court, the Constitutional Council, shifted the interpretation from neutrality of public service to neutrality of the state, extending restrictions beyond purely public institutions. Defenders of laïcité argue it is essential for social cohesion and protecting individual freedom from religious coercion. Yet the debate reveals fundamental tensions. There is still a widespread support for laïcité. According to a 2019 poll, 70% of French citizens supported banning religious insignia in all public spaces. On the other hand, political scientists note that democracies can actually support their own erosion, and the restriction of civil liberties is a warning sign of possible democratic backsliding. There is also the question of whether modern laïcité is truly neutral. Christian holidays remain national holidays, and some argue this reveals that laïcité, while claiming neutrality, actually reflects France's historically Christian culture. Laïcité remains central to French national identity. The principle is protected by law, yet it remains controversial both nationally and internationally, as France is often accused of having an intolerant system. What is clear is that 120 years after its enactment, the principle of laïcité continues to shape French society in profound ways and will continue to evolve to address the realities of a diverse, multicultural 21st century democracy. Thank you for listening to Le Weekend, your one-stop destination for everything we covered this past week in France. Catch our daily France News Brief roundups of the main news in France every weekday, wherever you get your podcasts. Stay informed.